The night sky above Earth was calm, filled with stars that shone like silver dust. People in cities and villages went about their lives as normal, but then the silence of the heavens broke. A shadow appeared in the sky, larger than any mountain. Slowly it spread across the clouds. The ground trembled. Dogs barked. Children pointed with fear and wonder. It was not a plane. It was not a satellite. It was a starship. The ship was black as night, its surface glowing with strange blue lines that looked alive. It was so big it covered the moon itself. The world stopped. Television channels changed to the same breaking news. Every government across the globe ordered their armies ready. Fighter jets took off, missiles were armed, and generals shouted commands. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. No weapon on Earth could fight a ship of this size. The starship opened. A single beam of golden light fell upon the ground. The light burned like fire, but it did not destroy. From the light, a figure stepped forward. She was not human. She was taller than the tallest soldier, her armor shining like molten silver. Her cape floated behind her, though there was no wind. Her eyes glowed with a golden flame, and her crown sparkled with gems from unknown worlds. She was more than a queen. She was an empress, the empress who commanded worlds. Soldiers aimed their weapons at her, but their hands shook. She did not attack. She did not threaten. Instead, she looked around, her gaze sharp like a blade, searching through the humans as if looking for one face among millions. People whispered in fear. Who was she? Why was she here? Governments thought she had come to conquer Earth. Leaders believed she would demand surrender. The armies braced for war, but none of them were ready for the truth. The Empress raised her hand. Her voice rolled like thunder across the air. "I seek only one," she said. Her words were not in English, yet every human understood them, as if her voice spoke directly into their hearts. The soldiers looked at one another, confused. One? Out of all the billions of people on Earth, she sought only one? Then her gaze turned. She looked past the generals, past the soldiers, past the cameras. Her eyes locked onto a man standing far behind the crowd. He was not a soldier. He was not a leader. He was an ordinary man. The crowd moved aside as her eyes followed him. His name was whispered by her lips, carried on the air. A single human name. The man froze. His heart pounded. He could not believe it. Why would a ruler of countless worlds, an empress feared by galaxies, come here for him? The crowd murmured. Some gasped. Others stepped back in fear. The soldiers, unsure of what to do, lowered their weapons. The Empress took one step forward, then another. Every movement shook the ground. Her golden eyes never left the man. Governments watched in silence. The world held its breath. She stopped only a few steps away from him. Even then, she looked like a giant compared to his fragile human frame. The man raised his head, trembling, but forced himself not to look away. Her voice was soft now, no longer thunder, but something warmer. "You," she said. "I crossed stars, I commanded armies, I bent empires to my will. But I came here. For you." The man could not speak. He could not understand. Millions of soldiers, billions of people across the planet, and yet this empress, who could have anything she wanted, chose him. Why? The question burned in his mind and in the minds of everyone watching. Who was this man? What secret did he hold? The world demanded answers, but the empress gave none. Instead, she reached out her armored hand toward him. The moment seemed endless. Would he take her hand? Would Earth fight her? Was this the beginning of a new empire or the end of humanity? The crowd's whispers rose like waves, crashing into silence when the man finally lifted his hand. And just as their fingers touched, the ground shook again. Another ship appeared in the sky, black and red, larger than the first. Its shadow fell over the world, and the Empress's face turned cold. The peace was broken. The arrival had only begun. The ground was still shaking from the arrival of the second ship. Black and red, sharp as a blade, it hung above Earth like a predator ready to strike. Its lights glowed with blood-red fire, and its presence alone made the air heavy, hard to breathe. The Empress did not move. Her golden eyes stayed locked on the man. Her hand still reached for him, but her voice grew hard, colder than steel. "They followed me," she said. The soldiers on the ground looked up in terror. One alien ship was enough to destroy Earth. But now there were two powers greater than anything mankind had ever seen. The man's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words stuck in his throat. Who was he to demand answers from a ruler of worlds? Still, the fear in his heart was nothing compared to the strange pull he felt toward her hand. The Empress finally lowered her arm. She turned to face the red ship. Her cape moved like wings, her armor glowing brighter as if preparing for war. But before she rose into the sky, she spoke again. "You must choose, human." The crowd froze. "Choose?" whispered the man, his voice weak, almost broken by the weight of her presence. "Yes," the Empress said. Her voice filled the air, and though it was soft, it carried more power than any army. "If you take my hand, you will stand with me. You will walk among the stars, but Earth will no longer be the same. If you refuse, I will leave, and Earth may face my enemies alone." The words cut deep. The soldiers muttered. The generals shouted into their radios. Governments across the world argued in secret rooms. Some begged the man not to take her hand, fearing it would bring war. Others wanted him to accept, believing she was the only shield Earth had against greater threats. But no one could decide for him. Only he could. The man's mind raced. He was no soldier, no hero. Just a simple human who once, long ago, crossed paths with her. He remembered that day. It was not on Earth. It was in the ruins of an old battlefield, where smoke choked the sky and broken machines burned like dying suns. He had been lost, wandering through the wreckage. And then he saw her. The Empress, though then she was not crowned, not armored in silver. She was wounded, her army defeated, her enemies closing in. She had expected death, but instead a fragile human reached out his hand. He did not have weapons. He did not have power, but he had courage. He shielded her with his body, knowing he could be crushed in an instant. His voice was calm as he whispered, "You are not alone." That moment changed everything. The Empress rose again. Her enemies were destroyed, and from that day forward she never forgot the one who gave her hope when she had none. And now, here she stood again. The man looked at her glowing eyes, at the red ship waiting above, at the soldiers trembling around him. He wanted to ask, "Why me? Why not choose someone stronger, someone wiser, someone worthy of your crown?" But her gaze told him the answer before he could speak, because no one else ever gave her what he gave her. Not fearlessness, not power, hope. Still, the weight of her demand crushed him. If he chose her, Earth might be dragged into wars across the stars. If he refused, Earth might be left to die alone. Behind him, people shouted. Some begged him to say no. Others cried for him to accept. The world waited on his lips, but the man did not answer. The red ship above Earth opened like a wound. 1,000 black shapes poured from its belly. Soldiers, machines, creatures with claws and burning eyes. The air shook with their screams. The Empress spread her arms wide, her silver armor glowing like a second sun. She called her armies, and in a storm of golden light, ships appeared behind her, filling the heavens. The war was coming. But even then, she looked back to him. In the middle of fire, fear, and death, she still waited for his choice. "Decide," she said, her voice breaking the sky. "Will you stand with me, or will you let your world fall?" The man's heart thundered. Sweat ran down his face. All of Earth's hope pressed on his shoulders, and then he stepped forward. The crowd gasped. The soldiers froze. The Empress's golden eyes brightened, but she still waited. The man raised his hand. Slowly, carefully, trembling but unbroken, he placed it into hers. The world shook with light, and in that instant, Earth's fate was sealed. The golden light faded, but the war had only begun. The man's hand rested inside the Empress's, small and fragile compared to her armored grip. The sky burned with ships, red against gold, a storm of fire waiting to fall on Earth. But instead of leading him into battle, the Empress turned her gaze down upon him. "You chose me," she said. Her voice was soft now, almost gentle, yet behind her words was the weight of 1,000 worlds. "But choice is not enough. You must be tested." The man's breath caught. "Tested?" She nodded. "If you walk beside me, you cannot remain as you are. A human must prove his spirit before he can stand in the storms of the stars. I do not take the weak. I do not take the fearful. I do not take those who cannot endure." Her golden eyes narrowed. "I chose you once. Now you must prove why I was right." Before he could reply, the ground opened beneath him. The beam of light swallowed him whole, dragging him upward into her starship. The crowd below screamed, the army shouted, but the man was gone, vanished into a world beyond their reach. He awoke in darkness. The floor was metal, cold beneath his hands. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing like heartbeats. The air was heavy and he could hear whispers echoing all around him, though no mouth spoke them. Then a voice filled the chamber. Not the Empress's voice, but something older, sharper, like a blade drawn across stone. "Welcome, human. Your trials begin now." The walls lit up. Doors opened on every side, revealing paths that twisted like mazes. The whispers grew louder, mocking, daring, taunting. The man's chest pounded. He had no weapon, no armor. Nothing but his will. He stepped forward. The first trial came quickly. A creature emerged from the shadows, its body tall as a tower, claws like swords, eyes burning with red fire. It was not flesh, but machine, a weapon built for war. The man could not fight it with strength. He ducked, dodged, ran through narrow passages as the machine thundered after him. He remembered his old life, solving problems, fixing broken engines, using his mind when his hands were weak. He lured the machine into a corner, tricked it into striking a wall of energy. The beast screamed as sparks tore through its body. With one last push, he pulled a lever and crushed it beneath a falling gate. The whispers grew softer. For the first time, he felt them respect him. The second trial was worse. He found himself in a chamber of glass, each wall showing visions of Earth. Cities burning. Children crying. The red ships unleashing fire across the skies. His heart tore at the sight. Then the Empress's voice filled the chamber. "Would you sacrifice your world for me?" The glass shook. The fire spread. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head. It was only illusion, yet it felt real. The screams tore at his soul. His answer came not from reason, but from the memory of her eyes. "No," he whispered. "I will not sacrifice Earth, but I will fight to protect both you and them. If that is not enough, then destroy me now." The vision shattered. The fire vanished. The chamber went silent. The third trial came last. A bridge stretched across an endless void. On the other side, he could see her, the Empress, watching with unreadable eyes. But as he stepped forward, shadows rose from the dark. They were not alien. They were human. Soldiers, leaders, even friends. Each one pointed at him, screaming, "Traitor! Betrayer of your people! You gave her your hand and doomed us all." The words cut deeper than any blade. He froze, trembling. Doubt crawled into his heart. But then he remembered. When he first met her, she had been alone, surrounded by enemies, and he had given her hope. Now it was his turn to carry that same hope. He walked forward, step after step. The shadows grew louder, their voices sharp, their hands reaching to drag him down. But he did not stop. He kept walking. At last he reached her. The Empress extended her hand again. This time when he took it, the shadows vanished. "You passed," she said. The chamber dissolved into light. The man collapsed to his knees, breathless, broken yet alive. When he opened his eyes, he was back aboard her ship. The Empress stood before him, her golden eyes softer now but proud. "You proved yourself," she said. "Not through strength, not through power, but through courage. And courage is rarer than armies." The man looked up at her, trembling. "Why me?" Her hand brushed against his cheek, gentle despite the steel of her armor. "Because," she said, "you remind me what even an empress must never forget. That sometimes the smallest voice speaks the greatest truth." The red ships outside roared, preparing for war, but the Empress smiled. "For now you are mine, and together we will show the galaxy why humans must never be underestimated." The stars trembled as her fleet prepared for battle, and the man realized his trials were over, but the war was only beginning. The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It was fire. The red fleet spread across the heavens, thousands of warships moving like hungry beasts. Their engines glowed with burning rage, their weapons sharp enough to cut through planets. And against them stood the golden armada of the Empress, ships gleaming like suns, shields bright as diamonds. The two empires faced each other. The silence before the storm was heavier than death itself. Inside the flagship, the man stood at the Empress's side. His trials had ended, but his heart pounded harder than ever. He had no weapon in his hand, no armor on his body. Yet she had chosen to keep him close where the danger was greatest. "Why keep me here?" he asked, his voice trembling. The Empress looked down at him. Her golden eyes blazed, but her words were steady. "Because the galaxy must see. Armies fight for power, kings fight for crowns. But I fight for you, and when they ask why, they will see the answer with their own eyes." The man swallowed hard. He was no general, no soldier, but he nodded. If she trusted him, he could not break. The silence shattered. The Red Fleet fired first. 1,000 beams of crimson light slashed across the void, tearing holes in the blackness of space. Golden shields cracked and explosions shook the heavens. The Empress raised her hand. Her voice thundered, "Return fire!" Her fleet obeyed. Golden cannons unleashed storms of light. Entire red ships were torn apart, their wreckage burning like falling stars. The galaxy roared with war. The man gripped the rail, eyes wide. Never had he imagined such power, such destruction. Worlds trembled as empires clashed in the sky above one fragile planet. But the Empress did not waver. She moved through her command deck like a goddess of war, her presence stronger than any weapon. Every soldier obeyed her with absolute loyalty. Still, the Red Fleet pushed harder. Their leader appeared on the screens, a warlord draped in black armor, his face hidden by a mask of iron. His voice cut through the ship like poison. "You are a fool, Empress," he said. "You trade empires for a single human. You will lose everything." The Empress's eyes burned brighter. "I would trade empires for the truth of one heart. That makes me stronger than you will ever be." The warlord laughed, cold and cruel. His ships closed in. Then came the boarding. Red soldiers, monstrous and armored, broke through the golden shields and stormed into the flagship. The man was thrown back as explosions ripped the halls. Alarms blared. Golden soldiers rushed to defend, but the enemy poured in like a flood. For the first time, the man stood in the heart of the war. Smoke choked the air. Blades clashed, plasma burned. Screams echoed in steel corridors. He wanted to hide. His body shook. But then he saw her, the Empress. She fought like no other. Her sword cut through enemies as if they were shadows. Her voice commanded her army with fire. Every step she took was a storm. She was strength, fury, and glory all in one. But even she could not be everywhere. A red soldier broke past the line, its blade raised toward her back. The man did not think, he acted. He grabbed a fallen weapon, heavy and strange in his hands, and he charged. The strike nearly broke him, but he drove the blade deep, saving her life. The enemy fell. The Empress turned. For a heartbeat, surprise touched her golden eyes. Then pride. "You fight without fear," she said. He shook his head. "No, I fight because I am afraid. But I fight anyway." Her gaze softened. "That is courage. That is why I chose you." The battle raged on. Golden soldiers held the line, the Empress leading them like a star that would never fall. And beside her stood the man, fragile but unbroken, a symbol no enemy could kill. Word spread across the fleet. Whispers traveled through the soldiers. "The Empress fights for him, and he fights for us." The enemy warlord heard the whispers too. His anger grew. "Then I will break him," he declared. His ship broke through the lines, its weapons aiming not at the fleet, but at the Empress's flagship. The man felt the ship tremble, heard the screams of his allies, saw death rushing closer, but he did not step back. He stood beside her, and together they faced the storm. The flagship shook like a dying star. The enemy warlord's vessel tore through the golden fleet, weapons blazing, hunger for destruction burning in every shot. Fire filled the skies above Earth. Inside the command hall, the Empress stood tall, her silver armor broken in places, her golden eyes blazing like suns. Beside her, the man held the strange alien weapon in trembling hands. His body was weak, but his spirit would not bend. The warlord's voice thundered through every channel. "Your empire is burning, Empress. Billions of soldiers fall, cities of your worlds collapse, all because you choose one human. Surrender him to me, and I will let your empire live." The Empress's soldiers turned to her, their eyes desperate. To them, their worlds were more than her heart. They begged in silence for her to yield. The man felt their eyes. He saw the truth. If she chose him, entire planets might burn. If she gave him up, her empire might survive. His chest ached. Slowly, he stepped forward. His voice shook, but it carried courage. "Let me go," he said. "Save them. Save your empire." "I'm only one man." The hall fell silent. Even the soldiers seemed to hold their breath. The Empress looked at him, her face unreadable, her golden eyes burning. Then she spoke. Her voice cracked the silence like thunder. "No, you are not only one man. You are the man who gave me hope when I had none. My empire may bow, my armies may fall, but I will not trade my hand for a crown." Her soldiers gasped. The warlord laughed. "Then you have chosen death." The enemy's weapons fired, a storm of crimson light screaming toward the flagship. But the Empress did not flinch. She raised her sword high. Golden fire erupted from her armor, brighter than suns, a storm that swallowed the darkness. The flagship roared with her power, her armies rallying with cries that shook the stars. For him, her soldiers shouted. For the Empress! The red beams struck the golden light and shattered. The Empress unleashed her full fury. Her fleets, inspired by her defiance, fought with new fire. Red ships broke, their formations collapsing. The warlord's army faltered as whispers spread across the battlefield. She fights for him. She fights for hope. The warlord roared in rage, but even his strongest cannons could not pierce the Empress's will. At last, the two rulers faced each other across the void. The warlord's image burned on the screen, his iron mask cracked, his voice desperate. You would throw away everything for one human? The Empress raised her chin, her golden eyes unyielding. She reached for the man's hand, her armored fingers closing around his. I have commanded worlds. I have broken empires. But only he has conquered me. The man's heart thundered. In that moment, he realized the truth. This was not the story of an empress choosing him. It was the story of humanity proving it could stand beside gods. The Empress's fleets surged forward, driving the Red Armada back into the dark. Explosions filled the heavens, fire brighter than stars, until the enemy warlord's ship was torn apart. His voice was silenced forever. When the battle ended, silence fell across the galaxy. The Empress stood victorious, but she did not raise her sword in triumph. Instead, she held the man's hand high for all to see. Billions of eyes across 1,000 worlds watched. Armies, rulers, enemies, they all witnessed the choice that changed history. Not the crown. Not the empire, the hand of one human. And in that moment, humanity was no longer small, no longer weak, no longer forgotten, for the galaxy had learned a truth too powerful to deny. Humans were worth fighting for.